Are you one of these people who believes the moon landing was faked? I want to hear from one of you brainstems. Give me a call here at 663-1270. I want you to explain yourself, to justify your existence. I mentioned this, of course. Oh, first of all, let me say hello. I'm Jim Walsh here at SuperTalk 1270 and SuperTalk1270.com. Talking about this, of course, because this past weekend, the 45th anniversary of the first Apollo moon landing. And I remember it well. I was 13 years old at the time. And I remember watching that puppy on TV. My parents were watching it. Staying up late to watch Neil Armstrong come down the thing on that really black and white grainy film that they were showing from the moon. And he got there and he said something about a step for man and a leap for mankind, whatever it was he said. I'm thinking at the time, I was thinking, what was it he just said? Now, of course, we know what he said. So Neil and Buzz are walking around on the moon, and then they did the phone call with the president, Richard Nixon. Oh, hello, Neil and Buzz. It's really great that you're on the moon, and it's really great that I'm your president, and I can be here to talk to you while you're on the moon, because I'm the president. Nixon, what can I say? You got to love it. And I mentioned all this, of course, the anniversary this past weekend. I was kind of disappointed that people didn't do more with the anniversary this time around than they did. Some of the anniversary celebrations, the 25th anniversary, I remember specifically, that was the year, that would have been, 1994, 20 years ago. And I remember the week of the anniversary, they had Cindy Crawford on the cover of TV Guide. And as an afterthought, they had some mention, oh yeah, and by the way, 20 years ago, man walked on the moon. I'll never forget that. That was so lame. They really were thinking, we can't just talk to people about putting a man on the moon. It's not sexy. We got to have Cindy Crawford on there. Cindy Crawford, who basically her entire qualification for being there was what? She was born with really great genes. As Dennis Miller once said, she hit the old pick six in the genetic Powerball. And for that reason, they put her on the cover of TV Guide and not Neil and Buzz and Michael. And right there and then, I realized we're doomed. Doomed! We're doomed as a culture. You think all this stupidity started with the Kardashians in the last couple of years? No, it's been there for a long time. Hey, I'm old enough to remember a time in my life when Frankie Avalon had #1 records. Hey, all right. Number here is 663-1270. And once again, these conspiracy people are coming out of the woodwork. Personally, I think they ought to go back into the woodwork with the termites. But these people are coming out of the woodwork, and it just amazes me that people take this crap seriously. Fox TV. Not the news channel, which is fiction enough, but I'm talking about the Fox Entertainment Network, the same channel where you see The Simpsons and Family Guy. They've had several of these stupid specials on, usually hosted by that guy from The X-Files, Mitch Pileggi, where they talk about, is the Apollo moon mission a hoax? And, you watch it one time and it's mildly amusing. You think, this is amusing. It's kind of silly. It's goofy, whatever. Second and third time, you start to get a bit annoyed. Because a lot of people put a lot of effort into putting these guys on the moon. There was a lot of sacrifice involved there. The taxpayers, with their hard-earned money, all the scientists, the technicians, the military people, the political people, all of whom had to do what they had to do in order to put these guys on the moon. An amazing accomplishment. And there are people to this day who think that we didn't really do it. We didn't pull it off. And I'm going to tell you why I think that's a lot of malarkey. For one thing, in 1969, we barely can do it today, but in 1969, we didn't really have the technology to fake something like that convincingly. There are people out there saying that Stanley Kubrick filmed the entire moon landing, that it was all faked, filmed by Stanley Kubrick. Seriously. And these guys, and he made movies of them where they're supposedly walking around on the moon. It was actually some lot in Florida somewhere where they poured a lot of dirt on the ground and swirled it around to make it look like it was the moon, to make it look like there were craters and whatever. And they had these guys walking around in their moon suits, and they had invisible wires like they were Mary Martin doing Peter Pan, and they're bouncing up and down. Let me tell you something. If they actually did that, it would not be very convincing at all. When Stanley Kubrick made 2001, his space movie, his science fiction movie, well, he made several science fiction movies, but that was the big one. That's the one relevant to this discussion. He had to work his tail off. I mean, how much time? It was like 4 years. It took him 4 years to make that movie, to make a 2-hour movie. And I forget how many millions of dollars that he and MGM had to pour into making this movie look halfway convincing. Do you really think if they had tried to fake this that we wouldn't know it today? We all wouldn't know it today? You just look at the thing and go, look how phony that is. For one thing, the quality would probably be too good. You know what I mean? That's a mistake a lot of people make when they fake up stuff like this, is they make it look too good. Do you remember the actual moon landing, how grainy it was? This grainy black and white. It looked like it was taken, well, it literally was. It was taken from 250,000 miles away. And you really had a lot of trouble making out what they were doing. That, if nothing else, convinces me that it was real. And by the way, as far as I'm concerned, if you think this was fake, the burden of proof is on you, pal, not me. You're the one saying it's fake. As far as I'm concerned, you're the one who has to prove it. Don't call up and say, oh, you can't prove it wasn't. You can't prove a negative, all right? It's like saying you can't prove there is no God. You know, I don't want to get into that argument here today. But you can't prove a negative. No philosopher, no theologian, no serious academic would even try. It's a silly proposition. No, the person making the claim, the positive claim, is the one who has to prove it. So, if you're really convinced that the moon landing was faked, then the burden of proof is on you to prove it to me at 663-1270. I've heard all the excuses, and they don't hold water with me. Some of them are debunked fairly quickly and fairly easily. So if you'd like to weigh in on this, love to hear from you. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270 with more conversation. Your calls coming up. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. What's the problem, Hal? I think you know what the problem is, Dave. Is it just me, or did the thing between the two of them sound like sound like a gay couple having an argument? Well, I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't do that. Why not? Oh, you know why not. Look, open the pod bay doors, all right? Jeez. Anyway, talking about the anniversary of the moon landing, which I think is a very cool thing, and all this weird programming on TV and other places, of course, the internet. I mean, the internet is like a Fellini casting call with all the nut jobs on it. People claiming that there was no moon landing. If you're one of these people who gives this any credence at all, the idea that the moon landing was fake, that Stanley Kubrick filmed the whole thing, I want to hear from you. Explain it to me, all right? 663-1270. You know, it's like okay, enough of the Blue Danube. Thank you. You know, it's like the Kennedy thing. People get so worked up about, there was a conspiracy, with the Kennedy thing. They watch a movie like the Oliver Stone movie, which was a hell of a movie, by the way. I mean, it was a fun movie to watch. But in terms of credibility, I mean, the film was a total crock of you-know-what. But it was a fun movie. I think it had more to do with what was going on inside of the mind of that one guy. The guy, what was his name? The guy who thought there was a conspiracy, the district attorney. Garrison, right. That movie was more about what was going on inside the head of Jim Garrison. But if you're watching a movie like that, if you're watching any movie for the facts, and that, by the way, includes documentaries, then you are being taken for a ride to the moon and back, Alice. Now, the other night, it was not Fox. It was one of the other channels. It might have been a rerun of one of those stupid Fox shows. It was the Sci-Fi Channel. And they had a thing on there about the moon landing. And I remember thinking, this is going to be cool. Do a documentary about the moon landing. Maybe it's one of those things that Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, he did this whole series of shows about the moon landing and about the space program and about different perspectives on what happened. Some were documentaries, some were actual dramas where they had people portraying the astronauts and their wives and so on. And they were really good, as you would expect from guys like Tom Hanks, and I think, what's his name, Opie has something. And by the way, just see, Opie is doing a new Beatle documentary, which I'm actually looking forward to because Richie Cunningham. He's one guy who I would actually think would do it with credibility, would actually try to make it right, make sure the facts are straight. As was the case with these things that he and Tom Hanks did, and Apollo 11 too. But there are some of these shows, and one of these shows was on the other night, and I was thinking it was going to be like that. No, this Mitch Pileggi guy comes out, the guy from the X-Files, and he starts talking about did they see aliens? Well, no, they did not see any aliens. I think one of the guys, I think it might have been Collins, actually admitted he saw some weird stuff. But in the same breath, he said, "No, I'm not saying they were aliens. I'm just saying I saw some stuff I couldn't explain." Well, that's fine. That's all you have to do. But I've done a little bit of research on this topic, and I can tell you the moon landing was real. We did go to the moon, and we came back, and everything is cool. It was not Capricorn 1, all right? Remember that movie? Terrible, terrible movie. The best part about it was O.J. Simpson getting killed in the movie, unfortunately. It was just a movie. He was in it, and who else was in it? The guy from Law & Order, Sam Waterston, and somebody else, I forget who. But it was about this thing, you're supposed to go to Mars, and they wouldn't have made it, so they were going to fake the whole thing, and they had to kill him because the astronauts found out they were going to fake it, and they weren't going to cooperate, and it was all kind of stupid, but is it really any more stupid than some of the stuff that people really believe? Apparently not. So, I've heard all the arguments. And again, I'm just going to say this. We were not good enough with our technology at the time to produce a convincing fake. It's kind of the same argument I use with the Kennedy thing. Well, it's the same argument, only different. Here's what I mean. With Kennedy, so many people would have had to do their jobs exactly right and keep their mouths shut. And that didn't happen. Where is all this solid evidence? Oh, they've done a great job of hiding it. No, the government doesn't do a great job of anything, okay? If you're thinking the government, they engineered this, they had the guy killed, and they did a fantastic job of covering up the evidence. The government does not do a fantastic job at anything. That alone should convince you that there was really nothing going on there, that it was basically the one guy. And the same thing with the moon landing. We know the moon landing wasn't fake because the government just isn't that good at faking stuff. Generally, we can see right through it, unless we want to believe it. And that's a whole different kettle of fish. Anyway, 663-1270, still in awe. It's a favorite topic of mine. Of course, it happened the same year as Woodstock. The three big things happened that summer. You had the moon landing, you had Woodstock, a walk in space of its own kind, Uncle Walter, thank you. You had, and Ted Kennedy running the car off the bridge. I always thought a couple of funny lines that the astronauts could have used when they got up there was, Neil could have said something like, gee, we blew off Woodstock for this. Or, hey, look over there, it's Ted Kennedy's car. Oh, right. If you're wondering about this, there's a really great website I'm going to mention. It's called Bad Astronomy, which is exactly what it's not. It's good astronomy. A guy named Phil Plait. Now, you might have seen him on C-SPAN and some of these documentary shows. He's put together a really good site where he debunks a lot of this stuff. You can check it out for yourself there and get all the information you need. I mean, I could talk about this stuff for hours, but I'm not going to. I'm going to defer to people like Mr. Plait and some of the true experts who can really tell you what it's all about. All right. Number here is 663-1270. You see, there are guys in my business, in radio, who've made a whole career for themselves by repeating all this junk. You got guys like, well, there was Art Bell a few years ago. Now there's this guy, there's this Alex Jones guy who, everything's a conspiracy. They killed Kennedy and they faked the moon landing, and now the Bavarian Illuminati and the Campfire Girls are in a conspiracy to cover the fact that George Clooney is really the Antichrist, or something equally bizarre. Everything in this guy's head is a conspiracy. I've always thought, if I wanted to have an interesting career, I should do something like that, but I couldn't. I mean, halfway through the first show, I'd be laughing so hard. I'd probably have an aneurysm. I couldn't pull that kind of thing. There are guys who can pull that kind of thing off. And everything in this line of work, everything in this business is a work. Make no mistake about that. When you hear the Ann Coulters and the Sean Hannitys, take what they say with a grain of salt, because a lot of it is just saying what they say to get a rise out of people. The successful ones are the ones who are really good at that kind of thing. When I was a little kid, there was a guy on TV called Joe Pine. This guy was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant at getting a rise out of people. There's another guy, too, named Bob Grant out of New York. This guy was amazing. Bob Grant was one of those guys who would just, he would sit down with you for a cup of coffee, and within about 10 seconds, you'd be ready to get up and slug the guy. All right? He was brilliant at getting people pissed off big time. But that's the kind of skill you need in this line of work. And Bob Grant had it. Joe Pine had it. People like Coulter had it. Although Coulter is not nearly as suave. There's not nearly as, it works best when there's a little bit of, panache to the whole thing. When there's a little bit of flair to it all. That's the thing about guys like Joe Pine. The nearest thing today probably would be Howard Stern. Howard's offensive and all that, but there's a little bit of flair, a little bit of, je ne sais quoi to the whole proceeding. It's another case of something that we don't do as well as we used to do it, with one or two exceptions. But make no mistake, be very selective about the kind of stuff that you believe, especially if somebody's telling you that it's the absolute truth and you should believe it. All right? That's all I'm going to say. Everything's a work. Everything is shtick, to use a great Yiddish term. I'm not Jewish, but I just love that term. It's shtick. Schtick. It's a bit. It's a work. Okay? That term, I think, comes from professional wrestling. It's like, did you ever see the movie Glengarry Glen Ross? That great one scene with Alec Baldwin where he's trying to motivate these guys and he's cussing at them and he's insulting them and he says, get off your whatever and get out there and close the deal. Well, that was what you call a work. It's like what a drill sergeant does. Why does a drill sergeant do what he does? Because he's trying to steer you, trying to get your head and get you moving and grooving in a certain direction. In the case of the Marine Corps, it's a little bit different, but it's the same basic concept. So, I'm just saying, grain of salt and all that. All right. 663-1270. Love to hear from you. Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270 and SuperTalk1270.com. More conversation. Your calls coming up.
Yellow. This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
This is Shirley from the bank. The answers are no, no, and yes. No, we won't loan you money. No, we won't accept any co-signers. And yes, your account's overdrawn. I get off at 4:30.
Jimmy Gardner. I miss him already. I do. Rockford was the best. Even better than Maverick. And Maverick was pretty damn good. There was a couple other shows he did. There was one really weird show he did between the two where he was this guy in a motorcycle who just rode into town one day and nobody could figure out. Everybody thought he was his brother. It was some weird show like that. Only lasted about a season, but it was just fascinating to watch the guy. And do you realize that this is kind of a bummer? We've got a whole generation now who primarily will remember James Garner as the crazy grandpa on that stupid show, the one where John Ritter died. Think about that. All right. Jim Walsh here, SuperTalk 1270 and SuperTalk1270.com. A friend of the show, Josie Blaine, a local author, has written a new book about some experiences involving her family here in North Dakota. The book, I believe, is called Nowhere, Anywhere. It's available through Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it's coming out on Kindle this coming Saturday. As a friend of the show, for Josie, I would recommend very highly. It's a fun read. I would recommend very highly that you check out the book. I can get more information. Josie Blaine Media, which is available, which you can access online through Josie Blaine Media at Facebook. Couldn't remember Facebook for some reason. I know the old memory's the second thing to go. All right, here's something that's been floating around the internet for a couple of years now. And I see it's back, these things, everything's cyclical and everything comes back at some point. As Bruce Springsteen once said, everything that dies someday comes back. With the possible exception of Atlantic City, New Jersey. But there's a thing going around called Dear Daughter, I hope you have awesome sex. I love this. This is hilarious. And I actually agree with the sentiments of this guy. This guy has written an open letter to his daughter, who I guess is going out into the world. She's going off to college, or maybe she just graduated college. I don't know. And she's an adult, and she's going off into the real world. And he's offering her some very realistic advice about sex. And it's not what you probably expect. If you haven't heard this before, this is a real eye-opener, and I like it. I like what he says to this. I mean, this reflects my feelings on the subject very closely, okay? Now, let me read some of this to you. Let me share it with you, as it were. He begins, there's a piece of twaddle going around the internet called 10 Rules for Dating My Daughter, which is packed with allegedly funny threats like the following. Rule number 4. I'm sure you've been told that in today's world, sex without some kind of barrier method can kill you. Let me elaborate. When it comes to sex, I am the barrier and I will kill you. See, that's supposed to be funny, all right? And it boils down to the same old thing, the old cliche that boys are threatening louts and sex is a terrible thing when other people do it. Outside the sanctity of marriage, of course. And my daughter is a plastic little doll whose destiny I control. Anyway, he continues, look, I love sex. It's fun. And because I love my daughter, I want her to have all the same delights in life that I do, hopefully more. I don't want to hear about the fine details because I don't want those visuals any more than my daughter wants to hear about mine. But in the abstract, darling, go out and play. You're not me, nor are you an extension of my will. And so you need to make your own damn mistakes. You need to learn how to pick yourself up when you fall. I will help. But I think there's value in getting lost. I think there's a strength that only comes from fumbling your own way out of the darkness. Consensual sex isn't something that men take from you. It's something you give. It doesn't lessen you to give someone else pleasure. It does not degrade you to have some of your own. And anyone who implies otherwise is a man who probably thinks very poorly of women underneath the surface. Yes, all these boys and girls and whatever may break your heart, and that in turn will break mine. I have held you sobbing after your boyfriend cheated on you, and it tore me in two. But you know what would tear me in two even more would be to see you in a glass cage, experiencing nothing but cold emptiness at your fingers, as dear old Dad ensured that you got to experience nothing until he decided what you should like. You're not me, nor are you an extension of my will. And so you need to make your own damn mistakes, to learn how to pick yourself up when you fall, to learn where the bandages are, and to bind up your own cuts. I'll help when I can. The advisor, the person you come to when all seems lost. But I think there is a value in getting lost. I think there's a strength that only comes from fumbling your own way out of the darkness. You are your own person. And some of the things you're going to love will strike me as insane, ugly, or unenjoyable. This is how large and wonderful the world is. Imagine if everyone loved the same thing. We'd all be battling for the same 10 people. The miracle is how easily someone's cast-offs become someone else's beloved treasure. And I would be a sad, sad little man if I manipulated you into becoming a cookie-cutter clone of my desires. Love the music I hate. Watch the movies I loathe. Become a strong woman who knows where her bliss is and knows just what to do to get it. Now, you're going to get bruised by life, but I won't tell you that sex is bad, or that you're bad for wanting it, or that other people are bad for wanting it from you if you're willing to give it. I refuse to perpetuate, even through the plausible deniability of humor, the idea that the people my daughter is attracted to are my enemy. I'm not the guard who locks you in the tower. Ideally, I am my daughter's safe space, a garden to return to when the world has proved a little too cruel, a place where she can cooperate and reflect upon bad mistakes and know that here there is someone who loves her wholeheartedly and will hug her until the tears dry. That's what I want for you, sweetie. A bold life filled with big mistakes and bigger triumphs. Now, get out there and find all the things you bleeping love, and vice versa. This article ran under a slightly different title one time. I love that. That is fantastic. It's a father's open letter to his daughter about going out in the world and having sex. No. You're supposed to keep her innocent. You're supposed to keep her one of those. Remember that article? The little girls who were just being pledged to be faithful to their fathers forever. Little barefoot nymphets who were just walking around with little flowers and pledging to be pure of heart and deed forever. Yeah, welcome to the 21st century. Okay. Yeah, if you're headed back that way, be sure to remember to set back your clock 100 years. But if you're going to live in this century, in this time and place, this is the real world. And this guy, I think, really has it together. Oh, but he's not a parent. Oh, wait a minute. He is. Ha, 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 ha. I love that argument. Oh, you're not a parent. You don't know what it's like. Not being a parent can be an advantage, you know. Can make you more capable of being objective. But this guy, I really think, has a good perspective on it. I love this article. I'm going to save this because I think I just think it hits all the right notes. You know, if your daughter, your child, your son, for that matter, is going out into the world as an adult, you want them to have a good time. You want them to have fun. They're going to make their mistakes. They're going to fall. They're going to hurt themselves. They're going to cry. You know what? That's part of life. And if you try to protect them all that, are you really doing them a favor? No, you're not. So, take the advice of this father and wish your daughter well. Do the best you can to prepare her for life as an adult. But just bear in mind, these decisions ultimately are going to be hers, not yours. Your purpose in having a child is not to raise a miniature clone of yourself. All right? You succeed as a parent if you raise a capable, independent, self-supportive, self-reliant, thinking adult. Thank you. And to those parents who have done that, including my own, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting it right. 663-1270. Jim Walsh on SuperTalk 1270. More conversation, more your calls coming up.
Yeah, the monkey speaks his mind.
The great Dave Bartholomew out of New Orleans. He's best remembered as a co-writer for a lot of the Fats Domino hits. And I play that song, as I do periodically, because I have a story here about evolution and its discontents, if you will. And in fact, we're going to create a new segment on the program here. We won't do this every day, but we'll call it another exciting occasional segment, which I like to call Boot to the Head.
Boot to the head.
Because some people say things or do things in their life that are so irredeemably stupid.
I think this situation absolutely requires
Exactly.
a really futile and stupid gesture be done on somebody's part.
We're just the guys to do it.
Yeah, but some people say and do things that are so stupid that they deserve a...
Boot to the head.
Exactly. So today's lucky boot to the head recipient is a man named Ken Ham. Interesting looking guy. He's got like a Lincoln beard going. You know, he's got the beard where there's no mustache. It's just a beard, underneath, like Lincoln had. You don't see that too often anymore. But Ken Ham, he runs a group called Answers in Genesis. It's one of these groups that attempts to debunk the theory of evolution, using the same 3 or 4 tired old arguments that don't hold up, and they just keep repeating them over and over. And people keep debunking them, and they wait a few seconds, and they start repeating them over and over. Well, consider this a new low, even for a guy like Ken Ham. He's now saying that the U.S., we were talking earlier about the space program. Well, Ken Ham says the U.S. space program is a waste of money because any alien life that we're liable to find would be damned to hell. So help me, I have my hand over my heart as I read this. I'm shocked, he says, shocked at the countless hundreds of millions of dollars that have been spent over the years in the desperate and fruitless search for extraterrestrial life. Secularists are desperate to find life in outer space, he writes, as part of their rebellion against God in a desperate attempt to supposedly prove evolution. Oh, really? He continues. Life did not evolve, but was specially created by God, as Genesis clearly teaches. Christians certainly shouldn't expect alien life to be cropping up across the universe. Now, the Bible doesn't say whether there is or not animal or plant life in outer space. I certainly suspect not. And regardless of whether there was life in outer space, Ken Ham asserted that it could not truly be intelligent. Why, you ask? Oh, he has an answer for you. You see, he says, the Bible makes it clear that Adam's sin affected the whole universe. This means that any aliens would also be affected by Adam's sin. But because they are not descendants of Adam, they can't have salvation. Jesus did not become the God Klingon or the God Martian. How do you know? Well, anyway, he continues. Only descendants of Adam can be saved. God's Son remains the God-man, the God-man as our Savior. Yeah, I would say that this is a new low, even for the Ken Hams of the world. Now think about this. This guy with a perfectly straight face is talking about the eternal damnation of alien life forms. They're all going to hell, apparently. And why go in search of life on other planets if they're all doomed to a lake of fire anyway? To whine about the amount we spend on space exploration, yeah, you may have your reasons for opposing the space program, but to be against it because Christians shouldn't expect alien life to be cropping up across the universe, that's got to be a new low. So, for Ken Ham and all the other fun folks at Answers in Genesis, let me modestly offer...
boot to the head.
So it goes. All right. Can we have a little more of that monkey song? I love that monkey song. You know, the Planet of the Apes was had another big weekend at the box office.
The monkey speaks his mind.
Tell them what they can do with it, Caesar. Caesar was the monkey in the movie. See, and he was the guy who was the monkey. Was
Now,
really,
3 monkeys sat in a coconut tree discussing things as they are said to be.
Actually, that's based on an old thing called the signifying monkey, which there's a couple of versions of it available that I cannot run on the radio. Okay. Let's see here. In the time we have remaining, something's going down the wrong pipe there. This is interesting. During a bank robbery in Stockton, California last week, I know that area. I have a very close friend who went to college out there. 3 robbers entered the Bank of West Branch with handguns and an AK-47. They took 3 women hostage. They sped off. 2 of the women survived. They were flung from or jumped from the moving SUV, I should say. The third, unfortunately, a 41-year-old mother, used as a human shield. She didn't make it. She died. Now, there's really no good side to the story, but there is something to note here. the woman who died, she had been running this errand with her 12-year-old daughter and allowed the girl to wait in the car. In other words, she did exactly what so many people in this day and age are telling the parents not to do. She left the daughter unsupervised in a car. And the daughter is alive today. Now, just a week ago, you might remember the story. We talked about it, I think, on the show. I talked about it on the show, about a woman in Connecticut who was charged with leaving her daughter alone in the car while she ran an errand. The daughter, by the way, was 11 years old. And the rationale was, well, what if she got in trouble? Well, most of the time, tragedies are not going to happen while parents run errands. The majority of kids who die in cars, up to 40 each year, 40, mind you, out of the millions, they do so because they're forgotten all day, not waiting while mom picks up the pizza or runs to the bank. So what happened in Stockton should serve as a reminder that, you just can't predict tragedy. And we shouldn't be arresting people, parents, under the assumption that unlikely dangers are always around the corner. Next thing you know, we'll all be hiding under the bed all day. But we can't do that because, the bed might fall on you and you could die. So what are you going to do? I don't know. All right, comments welcome. SuperTalk1270.com. Go to the website. Be sure and check out Josie's book. Buy Josie's book, Josie Blaine Media, on Facebook. And also be sure and like us at the SuperTalk 1270 site, the page on Facebook. We'll like you back, and you qualify to maybe win some goodies down the road, Peace. All right, be back again on Friday with more conversation about the burning issues of the day. Jim Walsh for SuperTalk 1270. Have a good day. Thanks for listening.
ABC News, SuperTalk 1270. Accurate news, stimulating talk. This is KLXX AM, Mandan, Bismarck.